Radio and TV. Mark Starworth with you as we get ready to have a candid Christian conversation with my brother, my friend, author Dimitri Frederick in the house. My brother, what's going on with you?
Not too much, man. Just staying busy.
I see that, man. You dropping books like, man, I'm telling you, like I'm dropping bad habits, brother. I like that, man. So what's been happening with you? What's going on? Fill us in.
Well, I've been busy. I just finished the poetry book last year. Came out on your show, talked to you about that, and told you that, I had one or two poems from actually that new book called Why Entrepreneurship, What Is It All About? And just, happy. It was a long process, over nine months to write this book, dedicated, and 6 years in total preparing for the book. So I'm glad to have that book finished finally, and just want to let people know about it. It's a powerful book, and I think the timing couldn't be right with the stuff that's going on economically right now.
Well, before we get into that, I got to ask you, because my brother, I've known you a short time. You've already put out 2 books, and I haven't even finished my one that I'm still sitting on and holding. I got to ask you, how do you sit down and get it finished? Do you lock yourself in a room? I mean, what is the process of actually devoting the time? Because I started my book, and I went into some writer's block, and then, I feel like I'm coming out of it. But how do you just stay forth? Because when I look at your book, I'm marveling in awe how the Lord is blessing you, because that's where I want to see my book one day, in a form as you're putting it right there on the table. We're going to put it on the screen in a few minutes. No but how do you do it?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a lot of thinking, reflection, and years of preparation. Actually, with technology, and I have a background in IT, and so using my cell phone, whether I was driving to work on the bus, I was basically, the downtime I had, I basically was writing. I have a notepad on my phone, and I just wrote, and I wrote, hours upon hours writing back and forth. So, one thing in business, we used to say, have a drive time university. Well, whether you listen to personal development on the radio, or in my case, just writing, reflecting. And it was just a matter of, for me, I like to come up with the idea of a book and then start working on the title of a chapter. And from each chapter, start writing, And then as ideas come, concepts come, I just put them down in my notes. Or, sometimes middle of the night, wake up, have an idea, I just start writing down. But preparing for writing it, I would spend 15 hours a day. I tell you, writing is a full-time business. I tell you, it's amazing. Just 15 hours of writing, sitting down, and just putting the dedication to it, and trying to, because I was in a time schedule trying to make sure that book is out this year. Because actually, my goal is to have a book a year. I think the next 10 years, so I have a lot of books, and this is, talking about young kids right now, inspiring to be great and doing great things. Since high school, I know that I said when I'm 40, I'm not 40 yet, I said I was going to start writing, and the Lord moved me to start writing beforehand, and I just saw so much stuff that's happening economically, and this book was something I said God wanted me to push out of me, and so I know that time is important. One of the things I do on my show, Voices for the Voices, I do a countdown every year, New Year, to talk about just the economic things that's going to happen and how financially it's going to impact everybody, both baby boomers, which I talk a lot about in the book, and letting people know the information that they need to be aware of when it comes to retirement, job security. Even your teenagers, kids going to school, we're a big educational state, and I talk about the problems of education, and I think, perfect timing with so many institutions now are starting to talk about the seriousness, is the education system really fulfilling the gap, the needs of our students today when they get out of college and being able to find some kind of job. And so I talk about entrepreneurship. This book, actually, the first book, is a 3-part series, is not about entrepreneurship. And I think that's the first thing, people who are not entrepreneur-minded or have any desire to be an entrepreneur. I really wanted to come from a point of looking at just everyday life situations and let you know what's happening. Because a lot of us, are scared, afraid, don't really know what's happening, and we just see the news, and want to make sense. You buy into the hype of what the media may be telling you, but at the same time, you look at your 401k, you look at your retirements, and your children in themselves getting out of school can't find jobs. So I talk about everyday life situations so you can understand why you may want to start thinking about entrepreneurship the next couple of years. Because the way I look at things and the predictions I make in the book, things are going to get a little tight and financially rough for us. And I think that's why we really want to start looking at entrepreneurship. in the way I started the book, the first chapter, and I talk a lot about God throughout the book and references to scriptures, but I talk about your purpose. I think over the years, generations, we've kind of lost our purpose and our way. And sometimes I say, you look at the youth today, their soul is lost in God's way of just teaching from parenting, passing on the message of God and what God had planned for us originally. And so I started looking at that, and actually funny for me because I used to watch Star Trek, and I talk about the Borgs, and there's two species of that talking about assimilation, giving direction. We're talking about nomads. We are the only species that choose to, from being, parents having kids to go our own path and direction versus, you have a species where when we first, as human race, we started roaming the earth, we actually had a purpose. We roamed together on land, food, eat, we shared, but we continued to grow and evolve. And we started independently grow apart from each other. And so today you see that gap today in children, separating from the core message of parenting, teaching principles, discipline that we were taught, and then we start doing our own thing. And so much of that is part of the media, things that the kids are watching, whether or not, you look at reality shows today, separating us from the core value of family and growth.
Well, as you talk about that, it definitely, and you and I talked about this over the phone last week when we were setting this appointment up, and, there is a major shift going on in the family structures where a lot of youth are in their 20s and even some in their 30s and topping into the 40s still at home.
Exactly.
Still at home because they haven't quite found their way, or they've graduated from college, but they cannot get that job that they think and all that degree is about. And there's a major shift going on with that right now. And as you talk about the family structure, and that's another thing that your book talks about, because we have to start creating our own, because every person is given 2 or 3 ideas in their lifetime that could potentially earn them millions of dollars, and we have to follow up on that.
Exactly.
Because, I don't know about you, but I couldn't be, having my kids living up in my house right now and they're in their 20s and 30s. I mean, because we came from an era that, when you hit 18 and you went off to college, basically the door was open, and exactly. Your plans were not to return home, but to go forth and conquer. And see, our youth today don't have that. They don't see that. They feel that they can stay home. I call that you talked about the baby boomers, and I call that the video gamers revolution now. Because, a lot of times when we could have been out learning how to perfect our talent and our abilities, they're playing Madden, and all these other games and stuff like that.
Expensive video games.
Yeah, expensive video games, right, making the companies rich, but we're not getting rich. And then who are they hitting to get these games? Their parents.
Exactly.
So I see, so tell me, why entrepreneurship in your mind?
Well, like I said, entrepreneurship, when I was preparing to write this book, and I spent years reflecting on how do we become, and looking from a standpoint, as a minority, how do we get out of our situation, financial situation, and how do we create financial wealth for our families, when you compare classes of culture. And so I keep looking at all the different things from traditional business, brick and mortars. I do network marketing as well, looking at that. And I look at all the other avenues, and I see that, all of them have their own problems, but they also need each other. One of the things that in actually the second book and third book, I'll be talking about, the second book more, I'll talk about network marketing, how, comparing and contrasting the two, but they both need each other. But one of the things when I was looking at, it's like entrepreneurship is really the solution. It's not just being a business owner and owning a business, because a lot of businesses today I see are falling apart and downsizing, and because they're not embracing the new changes, and that's something important I talk about. So when I look at entrepreneurship, as an answer, I say, what? That's what is it all about. But also, I put that what is it all about as a 2-part meaning, because the what is it all about is that what is it that you are searching for in your life, whether or not career-wise, family goals or financial goals. We're all struggling to try to achieve something in life, but we're working hard for it, and sometimes we find out, we're just trying to make ends meet to survive, and we're not getting there. So when I say, why not look at entrepreneurship? Because the really answer is having multiple streams of income. we've come from a generation where we had that one job, retired, had a good life, raised our kids and everything. Was it the 1.5, white picket fence and all that stuff?
Right.
No one talks about that no more. But,
That's true.
But that stuff doesn't exist no more. It's died out. You rarely hear people talk about that because it's a.
Well, actually, you're right. No one talks about it anymore. But there's also what I call the unforeseen danger of that, which is now, it was once a reality for some people, but now it's turning into a myth. And that situation is called the shark syndrome. And basically the shark syndrome is basically when a shark stops moving, it will die.
Exactly.
And I witnessed this with my dad, who worked for a very prominent construction company. And as the years drew close, all he could think about was his retirement. And how good it was going to be to not, to get up in the morning and stand in the window with his cup of coffee. And, he got to that point, but unfortunately, he didn't get to enjoy it for a year. He had a massive stroke and right now is still in hospital care. I was in the trades myself. And I worked with a lot of gentlemen who was like, oh, this is my last job. I just want to get my hours in for my pension. And, 6 months later to no more than a year, I would see these same guys in the obituary column in our union newspaper. Yeah. So it made me think that, number one, you work all your life for this and then you don't even get to enjoy it. I mean, that's, something wrong there. You know what I mean? And what do you do to survive the shark syndrome? And, I look at my wife's father. He's up in his 70s, but he still gets up every day. He goes to his job. He didn't think about retirement. He comes home and he's in his garden and he's cutting his grass. He's staying active. You know what I mean? Because the body, if you're used to doing something your whole life, and then all of a sudden it just abruptly changes. You don't have to get up early in the morning anymore. Your body goes haywire, believe it or not.
No, it's funny that you're talking about that because I talk about change and talking about evolving because that's what we need to do. Whether or not you're working a job or have a business, and like I said, some businesses are dying today. You need to always be evolving, and that's one thing when I research. Look at the nomads. That's what they did. They evolved, continue moving and growing. They didn't stop. But along the way, we actually stopped. Now, here's an interesting thing. Do you know where dogs come from?
No, I don't. And
it was amazing when I found out how dogs evolved. Dogs evolved from werewolves. And most people don't know that. And I love National Geographic, so it was interesting. I was shocked to see that. It's like, wow, dogs come from werewolves. And when they explain the evolution of dogs, it kind of goes back to what you're saying, because werewolves, they followed man behind them, and as man was, feeding themselves to survive, they actually tracked the food, ate the leftovers. Now, what happened? To make a long story short, is that werewolves, over time, as they evolved themselves, decided to hang around more and became more friendly with men. And so instead of men being in fear of a werewolf, they evolved because they stopped chasing their food and decided to let men give them their food.
Wow.
So men started handing them food. Eventually, the ambition, the aggressiveness that a werewolf have to attack and feed, the claws, the fangs, all that stuff, and you could still see that trait on a dog today. That slowly evolved because there was no need for it because you wasn't hunting for your food anymore.
And that's very important because what's happening in today's society with the economy is that we're not evolving the way we should. You talked about brick and mortar businesses, and I noticed ever since you and I had that conversation, every time I'm out, I'm looking, and there's not been a time that I've been out that I have not seen 5 or 6 places with for rent signs or for lease signs up on them that used to be once prominent businesses in areas where you wouldn't think. I mean, even went into a mall, and looked around, and there was so many stores. You know what I mean? You still got your basic stores, but there's so many stores that are no longer there, especially like smaller franchise or corporate conglomerate stores are hard to find nowadays. And you really have to have a viable business to survive. And the title of your books is Why Entrepreneur, because we have to evolve now.
To entrepreneur mindset.
You've got to, because right now the economy, even the jobs that are out there, a great thing is the big talk in Boston has been the sale of the Boston Globe, which was bought for like what, $1 billion something, but it sold for $70 million cash. I mean, you know, there's a huge gap there, and you're wondering why, because no one's reading the paper like that anymore.
It's digital.
It's digital.
Yeah.
I mean, technology has really, I won't say engulfed a lot of jobs, but it's took a lot of opportunities. And if you haven't evolved with the technology, you really find yourself hurting right now.
And that's one of the biggest things. And actually, I have a lot of images in the front cover of the book.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You do. You got some. Well, hit us up on that.
Like I said, I talk about everything, you know. And one of the things I did with this book is that I didn't want to get to the nitty gritty, technical, talking about entrepreneurship, business, this and that. You know, I saw there's a lot of books out there about that, but people can't relate sometimes. And so I wanted to break it down to the basic things of life, things that you and I are going through right now, and struggling to understand that entrepreneurship is a way of life. It's not an option or whether or not down the line, because I talk about, you know, the next 50 to 100 years of things that's about to happen and how much technology is going to change. And that's why I have an image of a robotic machine that looks like a human, and that's where we're moving. And I'm a big fan of NASA, and NASA has a little miniature, almost similar to this character, of a robot to do some, you know,
the Mars rover, yeah.
Well, not the Mars rover. It's actually a human-shaped design of a rover. And I was watching it this morning, and how they're doing things. And actually, from home, I think Houston, Texas, where they base it out, they actually controlling the machine from space.
Right,
you know?
right.
And so it's amazing how technology is evolving. And I love technology, but at the same time, today I see the dangers of technology, how it's truly eliminating jobs right now. You know, everything, you know, you look at, and we're just talking before we got on the air about, you know, look at the transformation of the radio station. You know, it's not the traditional, you know, radio station. You're streaming online.
Right.
So when you look at businesses, and I see so much businesses shutting down, it's because they're not doing the necessary things to, you know, have an online presence. You know, we're so used to, and that's why, you know, my generation, you know, I'm not that young, but I've always had a virtual environment, virtual online space business model. So I'm not a big fan of the brick and mortar because it's so expensive today, and that's why so many businesses cannot resist but to go online or cut down. You look at so many things, you know, the Facebooks of today, you know, the Googles of today, all these technology-driven business models, and a lot of these new companies that's being formed are all digital, from apps being created. You know, there's an app for everything. You know,
that's true. I just got to take a quick jump in here real quick. You're listening to Boston Praise Radio and TV. We are the voice of the church in New England. Mark Stallworth with you live as we are having a candid Christian conversation with author and Bostonian resident, Brother Dimitri Frederick. He's got a brand new book out called Why Entrepreneurship. And, you know, it's a very exciting thing for those that are listening right now who are thinking like, what am I going to do? I got a pink slip. You know, my jobs aren't secure, period. So you have to think of what you can do to survive. How can you participate in this economy and make a difference, and then also have representation? And I think it's through entrepreneurship, and it's a very exciting book, and we're discussing it live here on Inside the MCE as we're having a candid Christian conversation. So my brother, you know, we talked about, you know, like you said, we're streaming online and you know, evolving with this technology, and there is a huge gap of us that are caught in what we call no man's land. Yeah. Like you said, you were part of the technology revolution. And the funny thing is when I was in school, computers probably came out like 2 years afterwards, where now they're mandatory in the school system. So I was one of those people that really never had the access around the computers. And because of that, I went into the trades where I didn't need a computer because I was moving heavy equipment. I was running heavy equipment. But now, as we look into broadcasting, even when I came here to Boston Praise Radio and TV, I came in the door looking for turntable 1 and turntable 2, and Pastor Wall showing me computer screen 1 and computer screen 2, and I was like, that was the beginning of my point of acceptance for the evolution, and knowing that, you know, I had to change if I was going to continue with my trade, which, you know, I have an associate's degree in communications, and, you know, you were talking about the brick and mortar thing, and I had my own wholesale distribution network, and it was doing great until I got a brick and mortar facility. And then after that, it went downhill because all my money was going into trying to pay the rent when I could have kept working it from home. You know what I mean? So I went against the grain and I lost out.
Yep.
You know, so that's amazing. So elaborate on a little bit more on that.
Well, as you're talking, you know, one of the things I stress in the book, and I talk about heavily on education, and, you know, we need to have a candid conversation, I say, with our children about the future, because, you know, it's one thing, you know, baby boomers getting to that stage of retirement, but what about the evolution of the next generation? How are you going to help them to survive? And the traditional conversations of going to school, get a college degree, and find a safe, secure job with benefits. Well, if that doesn't work no more, how do you help your child support themselves instead of moving back home with you? And so one of the things, you know, you could look out for is the State of the Union address, you know. And it was amazing when I was doing my show Voices for the Voices, I was, you know, preparing some material, and I was happening to watch the State of the Union, and I'm like, wow. Because, you know, as a college kid myself, you know, we go to college, you don't pay nothing to the real world, and I tell you, the real world is telling you what you need to get ready for, what kind of degrees you need to have. And I say, if you're a young person right now going to school, you need to take some time out of your college day to actually look at the State of the Union address, because the presidents, whoever's in office, will tell you the degrees that you need to have to get, and it's really engineering, mathematics, and anything else in science. You know, with so much energy saving, for the right words we use, biofuels and stuff like that. Those are the fields that's moving and that's going to change the future. And so it's not what you think you feel like getting, you know, it's what will work for you, you know, that's viable and also that's computerized, because that's the future. And there's some jobs, you know, don't get me wrong, that will still need physical hands. But one of the things I talk about is that society is going to view it differently. It's like, you know, low wage jobs, this and that. We're moving towards the intellectual. You know,
right.
I call it enlightenment in the book, and where we need to use our mindset. And so it's a dangerous in position that we are right now when we look at our youth and how we're not using our mind. You know,
right.
We're just doing our own thing, chilling. But that's a lot of time wasted. You know, from your teenage years to you find yourself your adult in debt because you didn't have the financial literacy to know some key things to prepare. Because our system are failing our children because we're getting pumped by advertisement, you know, bombarded, and there's so much technology being used to market to you these days. You know, and it's funny, I'm getting more into marketing now and looking at how you need to, you know, understand what's being portrayed at you. And I think I was seeing someone was complaining, I forgot what company it was, about how, you know, talking about sales, you know, when there's a sale, and it's like, they're saying, hey, that's the same price before. Just because we put the word sale on something, we automatically think there's a real sale, and there's not a sale, whether it's marked up or so on. So you have to understand and how business is evolving and how you need to adapt to business model so you could survive and actually prepare yourself. One of the biggest things that I'll be talking in book 2 is outsourcing. You know, one of the things that helped me get this book published is the outsourcing, you know, platform. There's so many technology that's being created online that makes outsourcing possible. Now, you could look at outsourcing in one way: bad, you know, jobs getting eliminated, you know, you being outsourced. Or you look at how you can embrace outsourcing and take advantage of it, whether or not you're going to create a business model based around that philosophy of outsourcing,
right,
or utilizing it like I did to actually publish my book, you know. And so we don't understand outsourcing right now, but just about everything is becoming, if they could find a way to outsource, you know, it's one thing to be downsized and jobs being shipped overseas, but it's another thing now where, you know, everything is starting to get outsourced.
Right. I mean, you know, you touched on a couple of things that really stuck out. One is the fact that, you know, the situation with our children right now, them not being properly prepared to go out here and create a business or to use their head. I mean, we're spending a lot of time on these video games, and the thing is that we're not sharing with our children the phase of the evolution. We're not preparing them. And like you said about the marketing. So in other words, what happens is, you know, $100 pair of Jordans or $120 pair of Jordans gets advertised on TV. And what does your child do? He throws the video game console down and he runs to the parent and says, I need a new pair of sneakers.
Exactly.
And a lot of us bend and do that. Yeah. Instead of saying, you need to go out there and earn your money.
Exactly.
You need to earn those pair of sneakers, whether it's through chores, because I came from an era, I had both the curse and blessing of being in a single family home and a mom and dad home. And when it was a single parent home, and I lived in a family oriented neighborhood, meaning like most of my friends had, both parents, except for a few of them. But, when it came time to go to the movies, go to the wrestling matches, or special events, the carnival or whatever, a lot of them could go to mom and get $10 and go to dad and get $10 or $15, and they were all set. Young brothers like me, I had to go out and I was cutting grass, I was babysitting, I was washing cars, I was throwing papers, I was working at Burger King. And I had the ability to make the money to still be able to go. But the blessing to that is they had 25 and I had 45, maybe $50, and whether I needed it or not. And back then when I was young, if you had 50, you was king of the hill.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I see that a lot in our children now. I mean, as you know, you go into the store and, some kid's having a fit because he wants something that's, outside of the family budget or not on the shopping list. And he's having a fit instead of him thinking like, how can I earn the money to get my own things instead of being mad at his parents?
Exactly. Well, the one thing I talk about is family values. It's just going down the drain, the two-family household. We've come to accept a one-family household is okay. But with the struggle of economics, trying to support yourself on one income stream, it is hard. One of the biggest dangers that I talk about in this book is as jobs get downsized, you live in a one-family household, and I look at it from a business standpoint, you are now 100% liable for that income stream, whether you're going to pay a mortgage, you're going to pay rent. How do you support yourself and with your family? And so a lot of us are getting trapped into that mindset. And I think, when I look at God's original intention, I think God setting us back to go back to the original way how things was set up, was a family structure, raising. And one of the powerful things I read in the book was, looking at entrepreneurship. It's like, and actually, Dr. Pinkett, I was just in Dallas, and he even confirmed that too. He says that everybody who's an entrepreneur didn't just get started as an entrepreneur. They actually saw somebody, whether it was the father, the mother, who are entrepreneurs, and they got started. One of the things I said in my book is that, all of us was born with entrepreneurial spirit in us, but some of us aborted it along the way. And some family members, they aborted for several generations. Right.
Some of us jumped in the box, and some of us took a chance and looked outside the box to create that income. That's powerful.
Yeah. And so the struggle for us to go back to our roots, originally what God intended for us was to be entrepreneurs. What's amazing, most of us don't even know, even myself, I didn't know, there was over 2,300 words in the Bible referencing finances. And I was like, wow. So mankind has evolved to change our mindset to understand and move us away from God and reading the Bible to where, just be content with a job.
Right.
So there's some history, there's some heavy stuff that I talk about in the book that you could read about from Rockefeller, Kiyosaki, and even stuff that I reference as well. That entrepreneurship is the future. It's the way of evolving and having that multiple streams of income, because you cannot rely on it. And you look at, other countries, what they're going through. I say it's just a matter of time, for us.
Amen. And I want to ask you something, and maybe you've got a chapter in your book about this, but most people, when they think about entrepreneurship, and I want to go back to that word that we used in that situation that is slowly turning into a myth, retirement. What does one do if he's his own business owner in order to provide for his future? Because we know that there's the rough years when you're starting out, when every dollar plus goes back into the business to establish it. But how does one prepare for the days when you don't have the kids to pass it on to, but your time is up and you don't want to, you want to be able to sit back and be comfortable? I don't want to say do nothing, because we already talked about the shark syndrome. But what does one do in entrepreneurship? What are some things that one can do in order to prepare for those days when they have their own business?
Well, we're talking about really part 3, wealth preservation and legacy. That's something that's so powerful and important to me that I talk about in part 3. And the thing you need to do is creating that multiple streams of income, because making sure that you're not relying on that one income stream, because your business will evolve with you or without you. And so whether or not you always, and that's part of the problem of being a small business, that we don't do the R&D. research and development. And so you need to have the time to not only just digging deep and looking, focusing on your business, but you need to look up too at times and look at what is happening to the economy, to the environment that your industry, to change, to evolve, and make sure that you're not behind the 8 ball. And so having that multiple streams of income, getting yourself diversified. For example, today, Amazon, we all know Jeff Bezos, the CEO. He just bought the Washington Post.
Washington Post, right.
So why would someone do that? You don't get it, because he's an entrepreneur. He's looking at the future. He's not looking at the present. We so much get stuck in the present, but we don't. And that's why one of the things I say, you have to be an entrepreneur, because one of the things I used to say all the time is that I like to play catch, meaning that I'm looking at where I am right now. And if you look at football, basketball, maybe volleyball, any type of sport that's, you're exchanging back and forth a ball, you're playing catch. And that means that you're looking down the line. You don't, someone's running like a football player, throwing to a quarterback, throwing to a player. He doesn't stay still and say, I'm going to throw it right there. That's the present linear you're looking at, where you're at. I say I'm playing catch with the future, because I'm throwing the ball expecting where that ball is going to land to that person. And that's how you have to look at the future and look at entrepreneurship. You're planning ahead. You're doing the things, the activities, so that you don't get stuck. That's why a lot of businesses are shutting down, because they get so stuck where they are and content. Hey, I've had some success and I'm content at that success. Well, I say look at the future of your children, because that income stream that you generate right here. And I say with so much stuff that's happening, that your children, and I said talking about this book right now, your children will get scammed out of the wealth that you may have created. Because, first of all, you're not teaching wealth principles, and you're not teaching legacy. And so playing catch with the future keeps you moving. And it's amazing that I see so much stuff, because, I just have the mindset. God gave me the ability to just kind of see, not predict it per se, but see where the future is going with technology, to make sure I understand and embrace it. And how do I prepare? We've done some business stuff together. It's like I'm always doing something every year differently, because I'm watching where the future is moving. And there's signs all around us. And so if you embrace it properly, you'll be able to catch it and retire properly and have something set aside. It's not about just, having a pension, having a 401k, or putting some money in savings and hoping that it's going to be there. Because I talk about that, there's a problem with that as well in the future, because your money is losing value in the banks.
What was the highlight for you getting this book done?
I don't know if I would say a highlight. One of the things that when I started writing this book is that it's a self-accomplishment. That's one thing. But it just brought me more closer to God. It's hard for you to understand. Because I said, when you're walking within your purpose, something inside of you that's been burning. That's why I talk about the first chapter on purpose, and I reference some examples throughout the Bible talking about purpose, what God had. Because a lot of us say, I can't do this, I don't have the time, I don't have the skills. But I said, I don't care. I'm going to show you greatness regardless of what you think you are. But I have a purpose inside of you that I've created, a burning desire, and want you to accomplish that. So walking towards that and seeing how much closer I've gone to God over the years preparing this book, it's a great joy, and it's amazing, and I always tell, not too many people know, I have this pastor in me, and I said, yeah, I can see that this is pushing me closer, reading the Bible, and that's one thing in the third book, give you a little insight. I talk about God. There's a section, secret section. I talk about God because we forget God. And one of the things, one person, I was at the Frugal bookstore doing a book signing a couple of weeks ago, and the lady said, "Oh, I see you have a picture of God in there. Are you bashing God?" I said, "No." And I'm actually doing the opposite, because a lot of time we talk about business, entrepreneurship, but we forget about God.
That's right.
And so
that's right.
I wanted you to understand that. When you look at Greece, one of the issues I address is that people talking about, why would I want to start a business when corporate America is so corrupted these days? There's so much, mess going on.
Right.
And I say, it's because we forgot the fundamentals. We forgot about God. We forgot about the structure, and origination. And so I talk about God a lot in this book, because that's the foundation.
It's true.
And if you humble yourself and follow the right path God has for you and your family, you won't have no problem.
That's right.
Business will be done with ethics.
That's right. And then to anybody out there who is an entrepreneur, you should take some of your proceeds and tithe with that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Because again, you can't take God out the equation and expect yourself to succeed. It's just not going to happen.
Well, I'm glad you addressed that, because one of the things, I'll be talking about the churches, in part 3, the churches are failing right now. They're dying.
They are.
Because we have again backwards mentality. We're not teaching entrepreneurship. We're not teaching create something for yourself, because if you do that, create something for yourself, create wealth for your family, guess what? You have the ability to tithe, as opposed to, I barely have enough. I'm struggling to make ends meet. My job is cutting my hours. And that's all you could say. But if you create something, and we all have something inside of us that we've always wanted to do, we think it's a hobby, this and that. Well, you can make it powerful and create something great. I have so many examples I talk about in the book about different people who use their God-given talents, who didn't think they had the ability to, and create great businesses.
Wow. 617-282-0685. We are talking live, having a candid Christian conversation with my brother, my friend, author Dimitri Frederick, here with Why Entrepreneurship. If you have any questions or comments for my brother, you can call us again right now. The number here is 617-282-0685. I mean, very, very powerful. And it's funny you said that, because about the churches failing. And I think part of the situation with that is because, in the churches, they talk a lot about tithing to them, but the churches do not tithe outsource. In other words, there's what's called, in the Bible, there's what's called the poor man's tithe. You understand, where the church is supposed to go out and bless someone who's less fortunate. I mean, that's a great way to let people know that God exists. And we don't hear that much in the church about the poor man's tithe. And as a result of that, like you said, a lot of churches are failing because they're forgetting what they're doing. They're making it about them and not about what God has put before it. Okay. And it goes back to even say what you talked about, as far as people taking God out the equation, expecting themselves to make it.
Yeah. And it's one of the struggles of churches, because they're not building wealth, and teaching wealth, and I think a lot of times we have that, saying about when it comes to money is like, money is the root of evil. It's how you treat money.
For the love of money is the root of all evil. That's right.
Exactly. And that's where we get it wrong, because if we create wealth, teaching, one of the things my pastor talking about, legacy, passing the baton to his child, teach him of the ways, and have, again, back to that family structure, and it's a peace of mind also, by having that. And the churches are failing because they're not embracing the new changes, the new technology. Our church, they're tweeting now, And so what are you feeling? One of the things, service I provide is be able to stream your services, and have the technology, because that's the new age of reaching out to the masses.
Right,
It's not just having that, I call it church having without walls, having the grace outside of the four corners of your church walls environment.
And just like you said, one of the blessings of technology is, like you said, you have to find the positives and make that work for you. Just as we're doing this broadcast, I have someone that's listening to us in Ghana, Africa. Now, you couldn't reach him with an ordinary transmitter. I don't care if you had 1,000,000 watts. He wouldn't be able to pick us up right now in Africa, right? But because of the age of technology, we're streaming on Facebook, we're streaming on Ustream, we're streaming on YouTube. He's able to watch us from another country and get blessed. As I was playing a song earlier, he was typing to me. He says, "Thank you." He says, "Yes, he is still good," and I like that. I was playing a song by Byron Cage, and here we are blessing people in Ghana who, wouldn't have a way normally to be exposed to what the American gospel is like, or what we're doing here in America, talking about God. And it's so it's definitely a blessing to be able to evolve with that, and take that and make it work for us, as well as you have to look at the downside and then work your way around it. So tell us, where can they get this book if someone's interested in picking up your book?
Right now, you could actually go to my website, whyentrepreneurship.com, and you could order it directly from me, or you could go to my other website, which Frederick is fmp.frederickcapital.com. Frederick is FREDERIQUE. Capital, so the FMP dot input frederickcapital.com, and that's individual. You could purchase the book. The ebook will be ready at the end of the month. I believe still working some stuff out to put that up there, but it'll be on Amazon, both physical print as well in the future.
Do you have any book signings scheduled for this area at all? Anything coming up?
Actually, I put a lot of that on my website, whyentrepreneurship.com. Also, I'm on Facebook, so definitely like me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/whyentrepreneurship, and you could check me out there. I have I just did an event, a Greater Generation Tabernacle in Brockton. I have an event, a couple of events. Actually, I'm doing a book signing in November. I'm going to be in West Roxbury. That information will be available online. Coming up also in November, I have I think a hair show up in I think Lantana's. I'll be doing in Randolph, and then some other stuff. Always have stuff happening. So again, you want to keep up and seeing what I'm doing. Just check out the website, and I always post. I posted actually today. I'll be on Boston Praise Radio as well, and you could always hit me up, and I definitely respond back to emails.
Now, you also do your own live broadcast. Exactly. Tell us a little bit about that. We got a couple of minutes left.
Well, entrepreneurship is such a big topic. One of the biggest problems I had, in writing this book is that there was so much information. And actually, that's why, I was stuck at the beginning because I had to decide to break the book into 3 parts because there's so much. The first part, talking about, baby boomers, which is throughout the book, but, purpose. The second book will be focusing on small business network marketing, comparing and contrasting, because I think a lot of people will be moving towards that. And the third book will be talking about legacy and wealth creation. So in order to solve that problem, 3 years ago, I started Voices for the Voices, or you could go to the initials V4, the number 4, DV.com. So Voices for the Voices is the extension of the book, where I just talk about everyday issues, because, just like you write in a book, in 9 months I've been writing, in 6 years preparing it, there's a lot of things that's happened. So technology moves fast, like we talk about. So I had to find a medium that will allow me to be able to talk about as current events happen. And so from Voices for the Voices, I do that. It took the time off the summer, but coming September, I'll be back on doing my shows. I have a lot of topics. Actually, my focus on this coming fall is really talking about entrepreneurship, talking more about the book, and I'm actually getting ready to be on BNN as well. So some of my shows, you may be catching it on BNN soon. Well,
talking about new technology, my brother Joseph Adai down in Ghana said, please give me your website again. So he definitely wants to get that information from you.
It's whyentrepreneurship.com.
Okay.
And my email's there. You could email me.
So it's whyentrepreneurship.com. Amen.
And if you're not, technically savvy, you could actually, call my office toll-free number. It's 877-589-3574. Just let me know which business. I have several businesses I own.
Give that toll-free number out one more time.
Sure. It's 877-589-3574. And just let me know that you're interested. And actually, I could fax you over, and on the website as well, you could actually get a fax copy of the order form, and I could just mail you a book.
Okay, amen, amen. My brother, it's always a blessing to see you. I know you're doing some major things. We're looking forward to following your future projects here at Boston Praise Radio and TV. I want to thank you for your time coming in today. And you got to give your wife a shout out, man. you know you got to do that, right? You know you do.
Suzanne Frederick, where you at City Hall? Just want to say what's up. I love you.
All right. Yes, my brother, we thank you so much for coming in, and we know God is going to continue to bless you in your endeavors, and we're looking forward to, you checking in with us and letting us know what's happening and how the success is with your book. Again, Dimitri Frederick, it's called Why Entrepreneurship, and you've got about 30 seconds to drop those websites one more time, just in case somebody's writing it down.
Actually, I'm going to do something special you don't even know, Mark. I'm going to do this for you, the listening audience right now. If you go to my Facebook, like my page on the Why Entrepreneurship, and that's facebook.com, Why Entrepreneurship, the first person, actually, no, I'll make it the 5th person who actually likes my page and leave a comment, I'm going to touch base with you, and I'm going to send you a free book. So you got that. You go whyentrepreneurship.com, that's my website, or you could go, and all the links are connected, so you could go to facebook.com, Why Entrepreneurship. The 5th person gets a free copy of my book.
Well, my brother, we thank you so much for that. I'm going to have to try to sneak in there myself, you know what I'm saying, and do what I do best. We want to thank you for coming in and sharing with us, man. It's been a great blessing and an honor here to have you inside the MCE. Brother Dimitri Frederick, Why Entrepreneurship? Candid Christian Conversation. Make sure you get this book. And we're going to be back right after this.